Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today, I want to take a little bit of time here and kind of walk you through the steps that I took to create this image right here and show you how we got from a blank canvas to the finished product. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop, and as you can see, this is just our standard blank canvas here. I like to start on just a nice black background here for all my space images for obvious reasons. Space is usually pretty dark, so we start with that, and I like to start usually with the background. So in just about any space image, your background is going to be your star field. So I went ahead and created myself a nice little star field. I don't know how much of this actually shows up in the video for you guys, so if you can't really see the stars, they are there. But I have a custom brush that I use to just very quickly brush these in. I've got a couple techniques that I use as well in order to kind of give them a nice little glow. I realized after making this one it was a little bit blank. So what I went ahead and did is you kind of go through this little technique of copying this layer, shrink it down, move it around, kind of fill everything in, and what you end up with is this one. So again, I don't know how much you can see of this because it is very kind of small details. We've got our star field put together. I've kind of already in my mind, I've got an idea of the color palette that I want to use, and with this image I wanted to go with a very contrasty image, which is kind of my style, I guess. I like very bright brights, very dark darks, and I knew I was gonna kind of go that route with this image. And I also knew that I wanted this to have a very sort of green tone to it. I don't do a lot of images in green tones. A lot of what I do is actually in more in the blue kind of area, but I wanted to do green with this one, so I knew that going into it. And so one of the first things I did is I added my planet. Now this planet has a lot of things added onto it, but this isn't a stock image. This is not a stock image here. It's actually this. This is actually something that I created as sort of my own personal stock. So after making this out of all these different layers and combining textures and whatnot to build this up, but I like to just be able to go and grab a planet that I've already got created that I know looks good, and basically just take it from here, drag it out, and drop it in here. So I've got the planet. Take a little bit of time, position it kind of how you want it, and I knew one of the big things that I like to do is in nice simple images like this one's gonna be, I like to have the planet and I like to have a light source, and a lot of times I like when they touch. I like when they come together because it kind of gives you a nice dynamic where you can have a nice bright star and the shadow of the planet can look really dark. So if you just look at this image here on its own, the back of the planet is too dark. Where if you look at this one, again, I don't know how well you can see it in the video, but you can see quite a bit of detail in the back of the shadow side of this planet. And for a lot of scenes, that's a great thing. But the way that I've constructed this, I'm able to bring it in here and I can darken that shadow if I need to. So I've done that. And in doing so, I'm able to add this star in here and really give it that punchy effect that I like. So we've added the star here, and again, this star is actually a couple different layers, and I may go into some videos on how I create a little effect like this, as well as how to build these planets or the star fields or any part of this that you guys want to see a tutorial on how I do it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, do you want to see tutorials on any pieces of this puzzle here? And if I get any comments, I'll go ahead and put together a quick video for you. When space is just black, the way that this background is, it tends to look boring and unrealistic. So I like to add what I call space dust. Something that will catch all the light that this star is putting out. So I go ahead and I add that, again, using custom brushes and just kind of painting around and getting the effect that I like. And this part takes a little time to kind of nail that down and get what you're looking for. So add that space dust in, and this is what we get after that. Is very subtle, just nice green kind of patterns around. And then I add on top of that a more pronounced feature. There's also another effect in here where you can see kind of in these lines right here where I've added almost like a little starburst type effect. And that is layers that I've added with a radial blur. So that actually adds a nice little feature, I think, to it, where it looks like the light beams are really kind of coming over the planet, and it's a cool effect. I like that. Now for the sort of final piece of actually building this image, we've got our star, we've got our planet, we've got the lighting effects down that we wanted, and now what I want to do is just add a little bit of flair to it. So you can see this layer. You can see this layer here that I've got labeled as flame, and what that is actually a fractal image that I created in a program called Apophysis. Now it's a very old program. There's tutorials everywhere on how to use it, so I'm not going to go into that one. But I created this fractal in there and brought it in here, and that's what we get. We get these nice waves. And if you want to, if you have the time and you have the ability, instead of using something like that, just draw it in. You can just draw it in if you want to. Just use your pen tablet and go to town. But I was on kind of a time crunch. I did this whole thing in about an hour and a half. So put it all together, about an hour and a half from start to finish. And using my own pre-made stocks like the planet really helps to create these things and save some time. But yeah, I put this in there as just kind of an extra little touch. Now we've got the image built. We've got exactly what we want in here as far as elements to the image. So now it's time to start building the look and the tone of the image. So to do that, I've got my folder here labeled effects. Now this is everything from adding contrast to curves and vignette. I've got all kinds of little things in here. So the first thing I've got is it's called the Orton effect. So this is kind of a photography editing technique here, but it just adds a little bit of softness. It adds a glow. So you can kind of see what it looks like on and off there. Adds a little bit of contrast, a little bit of glow to the image, and I kind of like that. But you want it very minimal. This is much higher than it would be in any photography image that I edit, but for this I think it works when everything's blended together. Now this layer we've got labeled as contrast. This is simply a layer where I basically just do a stamp visible, which copies everything that you've got on here. I add a Gaussian blur to it, and then I set it to overlay or soft light depending on which one I think looks better with the image, and bring the opacity down, and that just adds a nice bit of contrast. You can see there, adding this in, it makes that bright part a little more punchy, and it kind of tones down the dark areas as well. Next up, we got a little vignette that I added just to the top portion. Nothing huge, just a little there. And then our color balance. This is just to help kind of punch up colors. Honestly, In some images you can really set a different tone with it, but in this one I just kind of used it to increase saturation and kind of get the tones that I wanted in the areas that I wanted them. So really emphasizing that green color there. Next up is a curves layer. So again just adding to that really punchy look that we're going for. So that bright star really becomes super bright and the dark becomes a little darker. It also helps because in a lot of these images, the gradient that you create with your light, I don't know how well you can see it here, but you create a lot of this banding in your gradients from the light, and I really hate that. So sometimes I'll do things like this curves that will help kind of hide that a little bit. Another thing that will help hide that, but also changes the photo a lot. And one of the most important things that I like to do to these images is a LUT. So you can build it to look the way the LUT does, but it's so much easier. Create the nice image and then add the LUT onto it. In this case, I went with, it's called Soft Warming, which is one that just comes standard with Photoshop. Added that in. It's set to normal and full opacity, and you can see it kind of tones down that green again. It lifts the blacks up so it's not black anymore, it's more gray, but that's fine. That's fine. And then again at the very end, I've got another little contrast layer, but I've also added a border to the image in this one. You don't have to do this. This is just something that I do so I can post it on Instagram or wherever. But right here, the image is done. That's it. So I just add my little signature logo thing there. And that is it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give this a thumbs up. It really, really helps me out. Subscribe if you want to see more, and again, if you have questions about any of the techniques that I used in this, because I know I didn't really go over a lot of that. So if you have questions on the techniques or how to build any part of this from the star field, the planet, the actual star itself, if you want to see any of that, let me know down in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to put together some tutorial videos if you're interested. And until next time, guys, take it easy.